everybody. Welcome to a bonus episode of The Rope of Hope. Tonight, I have Kellan on with me, and he's going to be sharing his personal story of addiction and recovery. Before we get into that, you guys know how important a lot of these episodes are to me, how very personal some of them are. If this is something you want to see me continue to do, all I ask is that you please consider supporting this broadcast. Simply go to buymeacoffee.com/, this fat girl life. There you can become a listener sponsor. It's $5 for one cup of coffee. It's cheaper than what you're going to get at Starbucks. So help me out, keep me caffeinated. But you can also just become a follower there, and that's where you're going to get the tea. You guys, there's tea being spilled everywhere over there right now. So you definitely want to check it out. Buymeacoffee.com/, this fat girl life. Kellan, thank you so much for being on here with me tonight.
Happy to be here. Just thrilled to support people in their journey of recovery.
So why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about yourself?
Well, the short version is I'm 65. I had a long executive career that sounded like and should have meant that I was doing really well and successful from all outward appearances. The truth was that I had struggled with depression all of my life since my early teens. And from that, had a very rough up and down set of episodes, sort of the roller coaster of life. And that meant marriages and divorces. That meant addictions and recovery, and then more addiction and self-sabotage and in and out of rehab. And all of that was happening at the time I was holding up this facade of being cool and holding down jobs and doing good stuff. And it wasn't true. It was true that I held the jobs and made money, but my life was a wreck. And 12 years ago, or 13 years ago, at the end of 2007, almost 14 now, some dramatic events changed my life. And since that time, I ended that other career after 30 years and now focus my time on being a coach for those who want to make the most out of their lives and connect with, discover, develop, and manifest their divine gifts.
So, how did addiction start for you?
It started as an escape mechanism. I remember at 13 experimenting with sniffing gas while I was on my uncle's farm in the summertime. And, and then that was fun. And so I kept doing, inhalants and that sort of thing. But it was not peer pressure or anything else. It was because I wanted a way to escape from the feelings that I had about myself, which were really negative, brought on by, I was raised in a really strict discipline home. Today it would be felony child abuse. And, you'd be removed from the home for the kinds of things that were discipline in my day. And I internalized the idea that I'm not okay, not good enough. That was just a constant theme, no matter what I did. If the grades weren't up, if the performances weren't up, if my behavior wasn't up, I internalized that. So instead of getting mad at anyone else, I internalized it all. And that led me to decades of depression because I didn't know, and this is going to sound silly, but I didn't know you could talk to somebody. That was not okay. You're supposed to just sort of suck it up. And those feelings of hiding led to a drug experimentation as early as 13.
Well, I think you commented on that you didn't know. You and I are not that far apart in age. And when we were growing up, one, you weren't told, that therapy was an option. And especially as a male, you're taught to be a man's man. And men aren't supposed to have mushy feelings that, they need to talk about with somebody, or at least that was the perception at that time. Now we know differently.
Well, the funny thing is part of the sort of fanatic discipline religious upbringing was that counselors and all those people were evil besides, and their only function was to take you away from righteousness and God and all the rest. And so not only do you not get to have feelings, not only is there a stigma around anything in your head, you just need to suck it up and behave differently, but I was actively taught that all those people were evil and you shouldn't talk to any of them anyway. And so I didn't.
So you started with um, inhalants, gasoline, that type of thing. When did it advance further?
Oh, in high school, in high school and then in college. You know, the regular progression, I guess. And people don't like to talk about gateway stuff, but it is. And you went to marijuana, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, and at the time I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so LSD and all that other stuff were all part of the drama and speed and the whole 9 yards. Eventually, as an adult, my favorite mess or destructive thing was, Eric Clapton's "That Dirty Cocaine." And a point in my life one time when I was at $3,000 a week, which is, if anybody that knows, that's like Scarface amounts.
Yeah. Yeah. That it is a very, very large amount. Um, when do you think you hit your worst point?
My worst point was right before the divine intervention that saved my life, changed my life. And the whole 40 years wasn't spent as an addict. I went, I'd try to do something better. I would ruin a relationship. I would lose a job. Then I would start over again, create real success in work, because that's what I knew how to do well. But I didn't know how to have a relationship. So then I would ruin another relationship. And the cycles of self-sabotage, when you hate yourself, just go up and down and up and down. So the addictions came and went. The real addiction for me wasn't drugs, even though the drug of choice was whatever's handy, alcohol, anything. The real addiction was self-loathing. I couldn't stand myself. And anytime anything went good, like I started having success for some period of time, I didn't deserve that. So I can't have this. And then I would proceed a little at a time to chip it away until it was all sabotage, self-sabotage, relationships, work, all of it.
So, do you think, looking back at it now from an older, wiser perspective, because hindsight's 2020, we know this. Looking back now, do you think that the drug use was just another way to sabotage yourself?
Yes, it was another way to sabotage myself. It's funny because my mom was the disciplinarian, the person that desperately wanted me to be a certain way and was going to enforce it no matter what. And all the things that she was afraid I would become, I became her worst nightmare. Multiple divorces, multiple ruined relationships, multiple addictions, all the things she was trying to force me with beatings into not being, I became her worst nightmare. And, experimenting with drugs and then becoming addicted to drugs was all a way to both numb the pain and to be, the anger that you feel at being forced into do something. So there was rebellion, there was anger, there was desperation, there was hiding from myself. I remember one of my favorite sayings was I just want to be unconscious. And whatever the tool is, whatever's handy, I just want to be unconscious.
So, you've spoken of that divine intervention. And I know for a lot of people, that does consist of, a rock bottom moment. You've hit that wall, you're done. Enough is enough. What did that moment look like for you?
Well, for me, it was extraordinary. It doesn't have to be that way. I view it as maybe I was extra thick-headed. I actually had a long, extended out-of-body experience where the whole of my life passed before my eyes, and I wasn't hallucinating because I was on drugs. I'd gone to bed sober. I went to sleep and had an extended period where the whole of my miserable bunch of choices paraded before my eyes with sadness, not with anger. And at the end of that time, there was a voice that simply said, "It is enough." I woke up and 17 plus hours had passed. So it was an extended period of time. It was nearly nighttime the next day, Saturday afternoon, and that had happened on Friday night. I realized with just enormous sadness the waste and the pain that had been involved for lots of people in this whole parade, and realized I'd been extended an invitation to change. Now, at that moment, I had $1,000 worth of cocaine in my pockets. I could have done anything I wanted. So it's really important to understand that whatever your invitation is, whether it's you run out of money, you lose your home, you lose your job, you're on the street, or you have something crazy happen, like happened to me, whatever it is, it's your choice at that moment to accept the invitation. And I could have brushed it off and blamed whatever and taken $1,000 worth of crap and just started a binge. I didn't. I chose at that moment to flush it down the toilet, to accept this invitation and simply say, this is enough. I've been invited to change and it is enough. That's what the voice said. And I'm just going to do this. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know what the path's going to be. I don't care. It is enough. And accepting that invitation, however it comes to you, is the key.
So, how did that process of recovery then look?
It was tough. I threw away all the stuff, but it didn't take it away the cravings. It didn't take away the most important things. It didn't delete the self-loathing. I mean, I got where I was through 40 years. It's almost exactly 40 because I was 52 at the time. So 13 to 53. It didn't change those things. All it did is I'm throwing this particular numbing substance away. I'm going to try to do something else. So at that point, I made a choice also to quit the job that I was working at. It wasn't a job, it was a high paying contract. It had to be to afford that kind of stuff. But I had to walk away. I had to change everything about my life. I have to do something different. So it looked like for the first time in my life, I went to talk to a counselor and more, multiple. This one I didn't like, that one I didn't like. I didn't even do that right to start with. I would argue with them. I would try to control the session. I would not tell them the truth. I would tell them the truth and then tell them I was fixed and tell them all the things they needed to tell me and I know that's not a word, but therapyize myself at the same time. And it took me months, maybe even a couple of years before I was finally willing to just go be vulnerable and broken and say, look, I don't really know what to do. This is how I feel. What do you think? Instead of trying to control the situation. So it was messy. It was a long road. And the only thing that kept me going was I knew where the other road went and it sucked. So I'm not going down that road anymore. So I just kept going until it got better. And as it got better, I got more committed to doing what I'm doing tonight, which is encouraging others. And I decided to become a coach and not just help with rehab and addictions, but help people realize who they really are.
So, now you mentioned one thing that I've noticed is a very common thread amongst people in recovery, that moment where you have to be honest and say, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this alone. I need help. How did it feel in that moment?
It was frightening and liberating at the same time, because one of the things that happened in my early abuse and formative years when I was, coming to the conclusion that I was worthless, was that I was also feeling like partly the macho thing, the man thing, or whatever, that I was supposed to know how to do this and suck it up and figure it out. And so the idea that you really need help, as opposed to I'm willing to allow somebody to help me, is a completely different frame of mind. And being vulnerable enough to say, look, I need this. I can't do this. I mean, if you're familiar with 12-step thing, the first one, come to believe that you can't handle this. I'm misquoting it. You can't handle this on your own and you need higher power, help, call it whatever you want, but you can't do this. And as long as you insist that you can, you're toast. So come to know in your heart, not as a damaging thing, not as a frustration or worthlessness thing. Just come to know in a place of peace that number one, you need help, and number two, it's okay. And be willing to gratefully accept and lean into that process.
So, through your recovery process, what has been the hardest part?
The hardest part's been getting rid of lingering feelings when things don't go right, that it's my fault, and that there's this thing, well, if I was better, if I just did this more, if this, if that, the doubt, the self-doubt, the inner critic, the naysayer, we all have it. Some have it screaming loud. Some people it destroys, but it doesn't go away. You just learn ways to escort it out of the auditorium, to shut it up, to throw it off the balcony, to do whatever it takes to assert your sovereignty. I mean, you own your life and you're going to ruin it like I did, and maybe you have for a while if you let that gal control. And when you say, oh, I've had enough, I'm in charge here, we're going to do something different now, no matter how many times you have to get up. You don't die till you quit trying.
True. So, same concept through the entire path of recovery. Best moment.
Oh, I think the best moment was when I finally realized that, and I didn't tell the audience here the story of how I came to be with the woman that I'm married to, but when I finally learned, I had 3 failed marriages. I was a rotten marriage partner. I was broken. I attracted women that had their own sets of challenges, and I didn't know enough to know that or to offer help or support because I didn't know what was wrong with me. Or I didn't know anything, so I didn't do very well. The most powerful moment came when I realized that I did have a friend, that I could understand for the first time in my life at 55. What is a friend? What does that actually mean? Everything in my life, including the marriages, had been conditional up to that point. And I'm not blaming anyone else. I'm just saying my framework didn't allow for anything else because love and everything else, approval and stuff, was conditional as I grew up. So that was my view of the world.
Mm-hmm.
When I understood and felt the impact, and I think it doesn't come all at once, but trickle in, that there's such a thing as a friend, some real support, somebody who's really in your corner on your side. That was powerful, liberating beyond words. And that's one of the reasons I love coaching so much is I love to be on my clients. I love to be on their side and to be there non-judgmentally. Let's just talk about this and see what we can do, kind of thing, no matter what we're working on. It may be addiction rehab, it may be business, maybe whatever, but that feeling of having someone on your side was one of the greatest, I don't know, but certainly one of the top things.
So, if somebody is looking to work with you as a coach, as a mentor, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, I'm really easy to find. With a name like Kellan Fluckiger, it's not complicated. She spelled it completely correctly. So kellanfluckiger.com. My email is coach kellanfluckiger at gmail.com. I'm easy to find on Facebook. There are 2 Kellan Fluckigers out of 8 billion people in the world. And the other one is my son. So it's not hard to tell. And I'm easy to find on Facebook or on LinkedIn, or there's my website. I'm not hard to find.
Okay, perfect. Well, Kellen, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story of addiction and recovery with my audience, with myself, as someone who has been down that road. I know how hard and scary and liberating it can all be, and it becomes jumbled, and it's amazing at the same time. When you're at the end of it, you can look back. So thank you for sharing that.
You're certainly welcome. And the last thought I would give you, your audience, is I'm great. Number one, I'm grateful to be able to talk to you. And the piece of encouragement is, it may look like I'm okay and that somehow I had some magic stuff happen. The truth that I know above all things is no matter where you've been, no matter what's going on right now, no matter what has happened to you in the past, and we've only talked about one tiny fraction of the events of mine, but no matter what has happened to you, it's never too late to matter and to have a big impact. I don't care where you are or where you are now or where you've been, prison or relationship issues or money or finances, all of it. Who cares? Tomorrow is not an extension of today unless you allow that to be so.
I normally end each episode asking for an inspirational quote, and you just gave it. That is such a perfect way to end this episode. And so I want to thank you for the impact that you have made, with sharing your story, with reaching out to others, with becoming the person that you are today.
Thank you. Glad to
Of
be here.
course, of course. You guys, that is it for tonight. I am going to be doing some very special things next week. I am going on vacation. Woohoo! And I will be doing, rather than my normal episodes, I'm going to be doing like some man on the street type stuff and bringing some really unique content to you guys. So definitely keep your eyes peeled. Pay attention to not only the Buy Me a Coffee page, but Facebook, Instagram, however you find me. You're going to find new stuff there that you're going to want to pay attention to. I hope everybody has an amazing night. Kellan, thank you again. Bye, guys.